Welcome to the Voyage. Let me ask you something before we begin the show today. What if the very thing you are chasing, success, stability, provision, is quietly costing you the people you love the most? What if winning on paper means losing at home? Today's guest heard a sentence that stopped his life in its tracks. If you keep climbing, you will succeed financially, but you will lose your son. This is not a conversation just about careers. It is about choices, presence, and the moment that force you to decide what really matters. Today's conversation is not just about titles, resume, or accomplishment, though there are many. This is about the man behind the role, the husband, the father, the son, the leader who had learned when to let go, and the woman who had to confront the part of himself that achievement could not fix. So, stay with us, just the truth, and honest truth as long as we can reach it. Jimmy, you are welcome to the show. Now, this is going to be very exciting because, I met Jimmy here in Nashville for maybe 2 years or thereabout now. So it's going to be a very interesting and exciting session today. And we are going to dive straight into our conversation. And I can tell you that this is going to be fun and exciting. Jimmy, thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
Hey, thanks for having me, DJ. I'm looking forward to it, man.
All right, sounds good. So let's keep this conversation from the beginning. This is the Voyage where we talk about the trials of life, the transitions and the triumph, because at one time or the other, everybody will go through these phases of life.
Absolutely.
It is a question of when.
Yes.
So starting from the beginning, Jimmy, share with us your background, your growing up. What kind of an environment did you grow up in? Take us back to your childhood. The environment that shaped you and the values that were spoken and unspoken that has made you to be who you are now.
Okay, so I grew up in Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Okay.
I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I have 2 brothers and a little sister. And my dad was in the military. And so when he got stationed at Fort Walton Beach, Florida in 1776, he decided that's where they were going to stay. And so I grew up and, my parents weren't wealthy. They weren't rich. Both my mom and dad worked really hard. I saw my dad go back to school and get his bachelor's degree and get his master's degree. And I saw my mom go to school and get her bachelor's degree and then her RN in nursing. And so they worked really hard. But, being the oldest of 4 kids, I was adventurous.
Interesting.
I was definitely what I would call a risk taker. I was just willing to take risks. I was willing to do some things that probably my siblings would not dare to do. In some instances, I got caught. In some instances, I didn't get caught. But I was always the adventurous one, and so my parents are still together today. They've been married for 52 years.
Wow.
And
52 years.
52 years.
Wow.
They've been married, and so everything in the house wasn't perfect, but I saw my mom and dad really work hard. I would say it's probably by the grace of God that I'm here today because just some of the things that I did when I was younger.
Well, so if I may interrupt you, talking about some of the things that you did growing up, take me back to when you were 14 years old and you try dipping. I believe dipping is testing out tobacco or snuffing tobacco, right?
Yeah.
Take me back to that time that, you ended up vomiting and collapsing in your backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Walk me through, taking risk and adventure, right?
Yeah, well, my neighbor across the street, his name is Chip. He's always dipping. He always take that dip can and he pound it with his index finger, and it always intrigued me how he did that. And one day I was just like, I said, "Hey, Chip," I said, "I think I want to try that." And he said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, I think I want to try it. How do you do it?" So he gave me some. We're sitting on his porch, and he did not give me the full instructions on how to chew it, because I was swallowing the juice. I was swallowing some of the juice. It wasn't 5 minutes later, DJ, I was sick as a dog.
Oh my goodness.
For me to walk across the street, I was literally drunk at the age of 14. Snuffing the dip made me drunk. And I was scared to go in through the front door in fear that my parents would see me in the condition that I was in. So I went around through the backyard, and that's when I started vomiting and just I felt like I was gonna die, and went into the house and through the back door and went in and laid in the bed, and I said I will never do that again.
Talking about that childhood moment of taking a risk, trying out new things, how did that childhood moment still speak to you today when you see something that looks attractive, but you know it could make you miserable?
Back then I was a child,
Okay.
And now I'm a bit. Sometimes I still act like a child, but
We all do.
But I have matured, and the scripture says that when you become a man, you put away those childish things, and so these days, at my age, even though I want to be adventurous, I also have to take a calculated risk. I think more about it. What's going to be the cause, what's going to be the effect, what's going to be the possible outcomes of this situation before I make a decision, and do something that's risky. So I think the older you get, maybe the less risk you'll take because you're much wiser. When you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, up to the age of 18, you think you can do anything. You just, your mind will take you places where you never thought you would go. And then as you get older and you start experiencing life, sometimes those experiences will alter, I'll say they'll alter what you believe or what you think you can or cannot do. If that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. You talk about your dad and your mom, going back to school to get their degree. And I also discovered that your dad eventually became a minister, a pastor, right? Growing up as a pastor child and looking at how your parents, went back to get their degree, what were some of those, what did that instill into you when it comes to strive and determination, seeing them do all of that?
My dad always tells me that with God, all things are possible. Anything, as long as you put anything with Jesus in it, you can have a better life. You can do anything. I think watching them and doing what they did, they had a vision of where they wanted to go. My mom and dad's whole concept is I want my kids to be in a better position when they're my age than I am currently. So when they get to my age, I want them to be in a better position. And so you do what you can as a father to position your kids and your children to make sure that when they reach your age, that maybe they don't make the same mistakes that you made, that they can be better off. And so, my parents instilled in me, I felt like I wanted to be a seed that could change a generation for a lifetime. So through my family, through my children, the Pitts household, the Pitts generation can be much better off. I want to make sure that I leave them better off than how I started it, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
When my dad's grandfather passed away, there was nothing that my grandfather left my father. When my mom's mother and father passed away, there was really nothing that they left. There was nothing that they left them or passed on to them. And so, my dad's whole principle is I want to live my life so that I can be a blessing, not only to others, but also bless my family. And so the whole process or thought process is that I want to position myself that I can leave something for my kids.
Yeah.
And then we, as a seed of him, should be thinking the same thing. We should be positioning ourselves. Now, I'm not waiting for my mother, and my father to pass away so I can get an inheritance. No, I'm doing what I can do today to make sure that my kids are better off. And so what we have is what we call a snowball effect. And so if my parents leave something, then we add to it. We leave something for our kids. We train our kids, teach our kids in how they should grow up and what they should do. And then that snowball effect continues to go. And so that's how, a seed, a generation can be changed.
Interesting. Amazing. Talking about the Pitts family, you're a dad of 3 kids. Now, talking about the Pitts family, when you say you want to leave a better legacy for your children so that they are also trained and equipped to manage it well and pass it on to the next generation. I've also heard you say that there is no manual for raising kids.
There is.
So talking about your upbringing, what part of your own upbringing were you unconsciously reenacting, in training up your own children that before you even realize it, those parts of your own upbringing were already responsible in how you are shaping and training your own children?
I will say this, my father ruled the house by intimidation. He was going to manipulate you to do what you needed to do. That's just how he was. If you didn't do what he told you to do, there were consequences. That's how I grew up. I have 2 girls, my 2 oldest children, born. I will only do what I've experienced as a child, right?
Very true.
So I learned how to discipline from my father. And so I became a disciplinarian by intimidation in my house. And in so many ways it was effective, but in so many ways it wasn't, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So we never had any issues, like really. The way I grew up as a child, I didn't have to. My wife and I did not deal with the stuff and the crap that I did when I was a kid. But when my girls screwed up and they messed up, I disciplined them, and I disciplined them hard. And what that did is it damages a relationship that you would love to have with them as they get older.
Wow.
Because at some point in time, they're going to need somebody to talk to. They're going to want somebody to talk to. But because I've instilled fear in them, because of the way I've disciplined, they won't talk to me, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And so, and then my son comes along, and I try to discipline him the same way I disciplined the girls, which was very ineffective. And I found myself in this crazy cycle. Because my son would do something, and DJ, I'd wear his tail out. You're not supposed to do this, but you did it anyway. And I give him a spanking. 5 minutes later, after he gets the spanking, my wife and I, we started realizing that he goes back to his normal self. Typically, when I was a kid, and my father disciplined me, it bothered me for several hours, maybe even a day, But with my son, I disciplined him. 5 minutes later, he's back to his
doing the same thing.
Back doing the same thing, like he never got disciplined. And so I found myself in this crazy cycle because every time he would do it, I would discipline him. If that discipline didn't work, I'd find another to discipline him. And what I didn't realize that was doing is it was creating this wedge between us. And the wedge got so wide and so big between us that he wouldn't talk to me about anything. Wow. Because he was always scared of how I would respond and how I would react. There was no trust there. And so my method of disciplining, although somewhat effective with my girls, was very ineffective with my son. And it created this wedge between us. And so as he gets older and I get older and he's doing things that I don't approve of, and there's just this gap where I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm upset, and I really, at the point in time, my wife and I are at a point to like, we don't know what to do. Wow. We really don't know what to do because he's out making choices and decisions and doing things that he feels is the right thing for him to do. And those things are really damaging our relationship. And because I only know one method of discipline, or I'm only familiar with one method of discipline, and that's the rule with the iron fist, and it wasn't working with him, we were at a loss. It's like, okay, how do we close this? How do we close this gap?
Okay.
How do I close that gap? And so, he graduated from high school 4 years ago. Both our girls are in their 20s. He graduated high school 4 years ago, but we're struggling with him. And so we ended up going to a parenting class.
A parenting class?
We ended up going to a parenting class.
Before you talk about this parenting class, the tool of intimidation and control, well, you pick it up growing up because that is how you were trained. And like many fathers out there too, that is the tool that they were used to train them up. Definitely you have good intentions, but it was love that's been expressed in the wrong way.
Right.
And it became a source of pain for the child that you are trying to protect.
Correct.
And it creates that wedge of mistrust. So what was the turning point that now said, oh, let's do a parenting class?
I think the turning point is when my son did something that I found that really, really made me go to the edge of the mountain. And I realized that there's nothing that I can do. There's nothing that I can say to get him to do what I know he should be doing. Okay. I've lost all control.
Wow.
And so that's when my wife and I sought help, because at this point we didn't know what to do. And so in a sense, I'm dealing with pride too, because I'm like, man, I got grown kids. They're out of high school and we're going to a parenting class. Why do I really need to go to a parenting class? And so we sign up for this parenting class, thinking that we were going to get tools to help us, to help fix our son. But in actuality, what we realize is that we're the ones that need fixing.
Really?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was an eye opener.
Wow.
So going to that parenting class brought us back to our childhood and how we were raised, and how there were some hurts, there were some pains that we hadn't dealt with when we were children, and that manipulating and enforcing your will and your way over a child is not necessarily the best way or best model for building a relationship with that child. And so we were at a point to where we had to go through an inner healing process ourselves.
Okay.
So, and we had to let go of some hurts and some pains that we dealt with our parents. And then we had to say, Lord, our girls and our son that you've blessed us with, they belong to you. We can't force them or make them do anything that they don't want to do. And so the Lord started ministering to my wife and I that we need to start ministering to the heart. Because when you start ministering to the heart, and the heart starts to change, then you can start seeing the changes that you would like to see. So you're not only ministering to their heart, but you're ministering to your own heart too.
Wow.
Because we personally have to make some changes. And so in order for us to see a change in him, we've got to make some changes. In the process of us making those changes, we're ministering to his heart too.
Wow. So you yield the control.
That is correct.
Interesting. And you now begin to minister to his heart.
That's correct.
How difficult was that, or how easy?
It's not easy. It's not. 4 years ago, the Lord put on my heart that I needed to take once a year, I need to do a father-son trip.
Okay.
With my son. And I'm a little dumbfounded because I'm not exactly sure how this father-son trip is going to go because we have nothing in common. He doesn't talk to me. And so in my head, I'm orchestrating or trying to figure out, how can I make this the best experience possible for two people who don't like each other?
Oof, that must be tough.
So he doesn't like me, and I don't like him. Now I love him, and he loves me. I think he loves me, but we don't like each other. We have nothing in common. I've done emotional damage to him. Wow. You know, he did something in my eyes that was so vile that I pushed him up against the wall. And DJ, I mean, for lack of better words, I told him I was going to beat his ass if I ever saw or heard or saw him doing what I saw on his phone. And at that point, I think he's a junior in high school. I think that was the tipping straw for him. Wow. Because I'd never gotten that. I don't think I've ever gotten that violent with him. But what I saw and how I responded and reacted, it pushed me to a level to wanting to really hurt him. Wow. And I go back, you know, my father did that to me once, you know, growing up. And so that's where we are, man.
I believe during this father-son trip, I'm sure you must have been seeing some changes and gradual rebuilding of the trust.
I will tell you no.
Really?
Yeah, I will tell you that this year, DJ, I was telling my wife, I said, I really don't want to do this trip. I really don't. I said, because I don't feel like it's effective at all. We just don't have a whole lot of dialogue between us. It's like, DJ, it's like two married people living in the same house, and the husband is living in one room and the wife is living in the other. Wow. And that's how it's been that's how it's been with me and him. You know, he doesn't, there's not a whole lot of dialogue with me and him. Now his mom, he can talk to his mom all day, but me and him. And so I was telling my wife, I said, I just really don't know if I want to do this anymore. And she said, you need to honor your word, and you need to keep it, and you just need to keep doing it. And so this year we went to Pigeon Forge. Okay. And we had a good time. There was some dialogue, not a whole lot of dialogue. You know, on the way back from Pigeon Forge, I got a chance to talk to him a little bit and share with him my heart. And I will tell you that probably a week after we got back, he sent me a text message, which he never does. Wow. So he sent me a text message and said, "Hey, Dad, I just want to let you know that I had fun last week." Wow. So for me, getting that text message from him was very monumental, because there are times I will send him a text message and he'll never respond. No response. Yeah. And so during these 4 years where I'm trying to have a change of heart, I'm working on my heart, he's not responding to my text messages. I can get angry and I can get emotional because he's not responding to my text messages. I mean, to me, it's out of courtesy that you respond, and he hasn't done that. But I believe the Lord has worked with me on my emotions. Okay. He's worked with me on controlling myself, and not allowing myself to get to the point to where I did when he was a junior in high school. My job as a father is to just continue to keep ministering to his heart and not allow my emotions to get the best of my decisions.
Good, good. So, if there is another father out there that is listening right now and still believe that the hard fist, that control still equals leadership and intimidation is the way to discipline and bring up a child, what will you tell him before it is too late?
I would tell him, if there's a father listening right now and he's ruling with an iron fist, I would tell him that the rule of an iron fist, one, is not effective. You might think it's effective, but in the long term, it's not, because what you're doing is you're damaging you're in real estate, DJ, and you know about the foundation of a home. And if the foundation is not strong enough, it doesn't uphold that house up. And so in the formidable years of a child, you're building that foundation with them. And while you think what you're doing is effective, emotionally on the other side, it becomes ineffective, because as that child gets older, they start to collect and gather that emotional baggage, and they collect those stories and those experiences. And then when they start having children, they're going to respond and react in the same way that you responded and reacted to them. And so it's the cycle that continues. And so I say that there's always a better way to parent. There's always a better way to discipline. Now, I'm not saying, you don't spank your kids. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is the way you go about doing it, you should use wisdom. And you should not allow your anger to be the one to do the discipline. Ooh. When you get to the point to where you're allowing your anger to do the discipline, that is when you start creating or emotional separation with that child.
When you allow your anger to dictate your discipline.
That is correct.
You are causing a much more bigger damage.
That is correct.
But the challenge here, Jimmy, is that for fathers, it makes us look as if we are weak when you don't use control, or when you are trying to correct your child and the child is not responding. And like you said, the tool that you have is, how can you control, or how can you shout, how can you scream, or how can you take away their privileges? Mm-hmm. So how does a father will not feel weak?
I want to give you an analogy.
Okay.
When I got my first job my first real job in corporate America as a supervisor, I was promoted to the position in Atlanta as a supervisor, and I was on the worst team. And I was on the worst pod, and within my pod, I had the worst team. And so there were 12 people that reported directly to me. And I was frustrated because I'm a very competitive person, and I like to win. I wanted my team's performance to improve. What I did initially is I called a meeting with my team members, and I basically told them, I said, hey, if you guys can't get your performance up, there's people knocking down our doors waiting to get in here. We'll just fire you and let you go. My initial strategy with them, and I did that, and news of that meeting spread throughout the center like wildfire. And I had two managers pull me into their office, Sue Case and Terry Rank. They pulled me into their office and they said, Jimmy, we're not in the 1960s. We're not in the 1950s. We are not in the factory, and intimidation is not the way that you motivate your employees. Ooh. And they said, if you can't figure out a better way to motivate your employees, then you're the one that needs to find another job.
Wow.
And I had to go home with that, and I had to think about that. And a couple of days later, I had to call another meeting with my team, and I had to apologize to them for the way that I presented my concern with them. And it was through that period that the Lord started showing me that it's not until you show a valued interest in them to when you will start to see their performance increase. I started sitting next to them. I started asking them questions about how many kids do you have? How long you've been married? Where do you want to go from here? What is it that you want to do? How can I help you get there? And in the matter of 3 months of doing that, I now have the best performing team in the center. Wow. And it was because I took a valued interest in them. And so I say that to say this, me being ruling with a hard fist doesn't work in corporate America. It doesn't work in the home either. You have to pray, ask God for wisdom, ask him for insight and strategies on how can I be an effective parent to my son or my daughter that is meaningful, that is life-changing, and that won't damage our relationship as we move along in this lifetime. And so you can continue to rule with a hard fist, and you can continue to think that ruling with that hard iron fist works. But there's an ineffective part of that you will feel as they get older.
Wow. That's a lot to sink in. Now, let's shift the direction of our conversation a little bit. There's so much I really want to cover with you, Jimmy. Maybe we're going to break this session into several episodes because of the wealth of wisdom that I see coming from you that will be beneficial to my audience. Now, Jimmy, let's talk about that weekend that your wife went to a women's conference and left you alone with the girls. And you were to, do their hairs, to cook, and toys were everywhere in the house. Yeah. What happened to your expectation that weekend, about the role or what you should expect when you come back from work?
Yeah.
And how did that change the way you came home every day from work?
Yeah. Well, when you get married, DJ, marriage often comes with expectations.
Yes.
Right? And so sometimes those expectations are false, but, there are expectations that a husband and a wife have, when they walk into a relationship. And I think we moved here in Nashville in 2001. I believe my wife wanted to stay at home with the girls. She didn't want to work. She wanted to be a nurturer with the girls, and I was all for that. And when I assumed that when she was going to come home and be with the girls, I also assumed that I would come home to a clean house. I would come home to cook meals.
Okay.
These are just assumptions that I had. I was like, yes, my wife is gonna be home. And after a month, 2 months, 3 months or so, I would come home and toys would be all over the place. And I never really said anything with my mouth, but my wife could see it all over my face, and not just all over my face, but just my body language in general. I mean, I was just, I walk into the house and there's baby dolls and those strollers and dishes all in, dishes in the kitchen. So no dishes have been washed. And Tashara, she looked at me, she's like, James, I'm going to get to it. She's like, she's like, I've had a busy day with the girls today. And when she said that, in my head, I said to myself, how is it that she has a busy day when she's staying at home?
Wow.
That's all she's got to do is take care of the girls. And in my head, I'm like, why are we having to deal with this right now? And then one weekend, she decided that she asked me if I could take off so that she could go to a women's conference in Atlanta. And I agreed to it.
Okay.
And so she left me with a schedule of what I had to do, with the girls. And after that first day, I couldn't wait for her to come back home.
Just one day.
One day, I was ready for her to come back home. And what it did is it opened my eyes to making me understand that my expectations that I had were false.
Wow.
And that what she does in the home is just as important as what I do outside of the home. And so even though I'm at work all day, she's at work all day in the house. And so the Lord started touching and tugging me in my heart. He's like, when you get home, If you see dishes that need to be cleaned and washed, just wash them. If you see stuff that needs to be picked up, just pick it up. If you have to prepare, start cooking dinner, go ahead. Do what you need to do to make peace in your home.
Wow.
And that literally took me adjusting my mindset, adjusting my heart. In this moment, I have to change. I have to be willing to make that change. Because if I'm not willing to make that change, then it's just chaos in our house constantly. We're arguing and bickering all the time. And there's that phrase that, when two people get together, well, he's going to do his 50% and I'm going to do my 50%. Oh, that's hogwash. You know what? In marriage, you got to do 100% and she's got to do 100%.
Wow.
And my 100% is not tied or contingent or based on what she does or what she does not do for me. So I'm walking into this thing now and I'm saying, I'm going to serve my wife the best way that I can, regardless of what she does or does not do for me, because my service is not contingent on her. My service is contingent on me loving her the way that Christ asked me to love her.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And so that, I think, helped revolutionize our marriage and helped us take our marriage and relationship to the next level.
So basically, the change starts from you.
It started with me. You will see in our relationship, in Tashar and I's relationship, there are moments when she has to change because I'm not willing to change. But when she makes the change and the shift, I see it. And because I see it, all of a sudden I start changing.
Wow.
But if she decides, well, she says, well, I'm not going to change because he's not changing, then we just create this crazy cycle and nothing ever happens. Nothing ever gets done. We're mad at each other all the time. We're arguing with each other all the time because she refuses to change. I refuse to change. But because at times she changed, it caused me to change. And because I changed, it caused her to change.
Wow. Now, this is getting interesting much more and more. Talking about change in marriage, we jump in a couple of questions now. Talking about change in marriage, you got married in 1995, thereabout, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the first few months of your marriage, you and Tushara could not stand each other.
Oh, we couldn't stand each other.
Fighting constantly.
Oh, man.
And you were both ready to walk.
Absolutely. 100%.
And at that time, you realized that your marriage may not survive. What was the hardest truth about yourself at that moment that you were not willing to admit to, or that you discovered?
In 1995, we both were 22 years old. I felt like we were too young to get married. I felt like there was more things for me to do. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too, DJ. But I'm being transparent. I still wanted to play on the ball field. But I don't know if I've shared this story outside of this, but when Tashar and I were in college, she went home for spring break or for the weekend. I stayed on campus, and our relationship was getting pretty serious. And I remember hearing a voice, an audible voice, say, "She is an apple in my eye. If you do her like you did the others, your life will be short-lived."
Wow.
And it scared me.
Wow.
It scared me. I called Tashar and I said, "I think we need a break."
Really?
Yeah. I didn't share that with her. I just called her and I told her, I said, "Tashar, I said, I really think we need a break from each other. You need to do your thing. I'm going to do my thing." I think like 6 weeks, we were separated from each other.
Wow.
She wouldn't speak to me. We at South Alabama, there's this bridge you walk over, and it was raining one day, and she's got the umbrella, and she's going one way, and I'm coming this way, and she tilts the umbrella like this, so that she didn't have to look at my face, because she's mad at me. And during those 6 weeks, this is 4 or 6 weeks, I was so miserable. Man, I was miserable. And I was like, man, I have never felt like this for someone before. And so I called her and I asked her for a second chance and a second opportunity. And we got back together. But in that moment, I realized if I was going to marry Tashara, then that was it for me. That was it. But I knew that I had a good woman. I knew she was a good person. When my dad pulls me off to the side and he says, boy, he says, she's a good girl. And he says, don't you screw this up like you screw the other ones up.
Really?
And my dad tells me that. And then my mom says, yeah, I like Tashara. She's like, I don't know about them other chicken heads you would bring home, but I like Tashara. So my parents, they love Tashara. And of course, I loved her. But man, as soon as we said I do,
all hell break loose.
All hell broke loose. Tashara was trying to be my mama, and I kept telling her that she wasn't my mama. Tashara's like, you need to do this, and you need to do that, and why come you ain't doing this, and why come you ain't doing that? And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm a grown man. You ain't my mama? And so that just created an argument because I wasn't doing what she wanted me to do. And then we just got into these tantrums, man. Tashara would get me so angry and so mad. I'd never hit her, but man, I would throw dressers over and flip beds over and punch walls, and because I wanted to hit her. And then she'd get in my face. She's like, you want to hit me? You want to hit me? So she was provoking me. And I'm like, man, this is crazy, the cycle that we're going through. But, you know, earlier I said at one point in time in our relationship, she had to change so that I could change. God spoke to her.
God spoke to her.
God spoke to her. And God told her, he says, I don't want you to bring James before me anymore. I don't want you trying to change him. You need to change.
Oof.
And that's what God told her. And she started changing it. And all of a sudden, DJ, I'm like, man, she's not nagging me no more. I mean, the nagging stopped.
Wow.
The complaining stopped. And it's like, what's going on with Tashara? And then all of a sudden, her change influenced me to start changing. And so when she changed and she started making changes, she started seeing the change that she wanted to see.
Wow.
But it wasn't until she first made that change.
So the idea in marriage that, people are demanding change from their spouse is usually counterproductive.
Yes. Very unproductive. It's very unproductive. You know, we are emotional beings, right? So, you know, we have a body, we possess a soul and a spirit, and our soul is the emotional part of our 3-part system. If our emotions can get out of control, the emotions will drive the decisions and actions that we make. And so what I've realized, and one reason why a lot of marriages fail is because from an emotional standpoint, people have emotional trauma that they never dealt with. So they need inner healing themselves because of the emotional damage and trauma that they dealt with growing up or previous relationships that they've been in. If we can get our emotions in balance and we can bring ourselves to a state to where we can respond and react to each other when there are difficult times and difficult situations that are in a respectable way, I believe every relationship, every marriage can be successful. Every marriage we're not always going to agree. We will always have disagreements, but it's how you handle those disagreements that makes the difference.
Interesting. So when your wife stopped trying to change and began, transforming herself first, you said something shifted when your wife stopped trying to fix you. that when that pressure disappeared, and somehow miraculously you saw the change in her and you begin to change yourself, what did laying down your right to be right in that instance actually cost you in those moments?
Pride. I mean, it's all about pride. The right to be right is prideful. I mean, that's what it costs you. You know, we I share the story just a couple of weeks ago. Tashar and I were in Walmart. We're going to Walmart, and I'm going to park in this one parking spot. And I decided not to park there because the shopping cart, the return shopping cart display is there. And I don't want anybody bumping into the car. And Tashar's like, she's like, you can park there. Just park the car further off to the right. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to park there. And so I decided I'm going to go down three spots and park. Well, Tashar was like, I don't know why you didn't park there. You could have parked there. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I just parked 3 spots down. We're not going to make a big deal about this, are we? And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying in my head. But then she kept going. We get out of the car. She's like, you see, you could have parked here. In order to be right and cut it, I said, you know what? When you're driving, you can park wherever you want to park. When I said that, she shut down. So we're walking in Walmart, picking up some burners for the chafing dishes, and she's not saying anything to me because the way I handled this was completely wrong.
Wow.
Now, in retrospect, if I go back, I say, okay, how could I have handled this situation a little different and a little better? Would it have been okay, DJ, just to say, you know what, Tashar, you are right. I could have parked here. If I'd said that, what would the rest of the evening would have been like?
Much more better.
Much, much better. But because she was pressing an issue, we're doing something and we don't even know that we're doing it, DJ. We're battling each other over a parking spot.
Parking space.
A parking space.
Cause misunderstanding.
Yes. A parking space. So whether you park here or 3 spaces down, I mean, what's the big deal? But the enemy comes in and uses that moment to try to divide, to try to separate, to try to get us at each other. Now, if that had happened 15 years ago, we probably wouldn't be talking today. I mean, it's just, but we've matured since then, and we were able to get that resolved. But I always say there's always a different way to handle things. In many cases, we have to be willing internally to give up our right to be right, because at the end of the day, what does it really mean? We're both right, but she has her way, I have my way, and sometimes our ways conflict one another. And so how you go about handling that is, if one of us says, you know what, I don't have to be right in this situation. I'm going to leave it alone. And I'm just going to walk in agreement. Your evening, your day can go so much better.
So it was a parking space, but beyond this parking space, it was what you said.
Correct.
And the scripture said there is power in the tongue. That as small as the tongue is, it can set a whole house on fire.
Yes, sir.
How much damage do what people say to one another at work, in relationship?
Yep.
How much damage does it cause? And how much building up and reconstructing and healing can it do?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Isaiah 55, verse 11, I believe God, he says, when he sends out a word, it says the word does not return unto him void, but it accomplishes that which he pleases and prospers to where he sends it. So if we are created in the image of God, and God speaks a word, and he says, when I speak a word, that word occupies space and time until it manifests. Then we, being made in the image of God, when we speak a word, our words, they occupy space and time until they manifest. Wow. And so when I'm speaking a word, whether that be a word to my coworkers, my spouse, my children. The words that I'm speaking, they're so powerful that they occupy the space, they occupy time until they manifest. So that's how powerful words are. I mean, just think about it. God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. And he did it with words. So how powerful are words? Words are powerful in helping us get to where God wants us to be. They're powerful and when you're admonishing and admiring, and words build up, they uplift, but they also tear down. And like you said, they can set a whole world on fire too. You know, that saying that we grew up with, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is a lie straight from the pit of hell, because words do hurt people. They do destroy people. We just don't know it. We're living in a spiritual world, whether we know it or not. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of high places. And so our words have power, and we get to decide whether we're going to tear down or build up with the words that we speak.
Wow, that's a mic dropping moment right there. That was a very trying time in your relationship. And that was a period that after losing your first child. And then you continue to hope and have courage at those moments. Jimmy, walk us through that period, if you may, and how did that loss reshape your understanding of God? Not just in theory, but in the everyday decisions you made, even after, your wife became pregnant again. Thank you so much. Till next time, keep building good, beautiful memories and continue your voyage.